Conversation with the Candidate continues.
Okay, welcome back to Conversation with the Candidate and our extended digital conversation with the candidate, our candidate, former Vice President Joe Biden. This is 30 minutes, commercial free, and we're going to get right to the questions with Paul Doscher.
Hey, Paul.
Welcome, Senator. Mr. Vice President and Senator. You've been both, yeah. Welcome to New Hampshire. I've been in environmental conservation my entire career, and I have been frustrated and angered by the environmental policies and actions of the current administration. And I could ask you about 20 different questions about that, but they only gave me one. So I'm going to stick to climate change. Do you support the concept of a carbon fee and dividend program as proposed in the Energy Innovation Act, now in Congress, and bipartisan bill, by the way?
Yes.
And why or why not?
Yes, I do, because look, one of the things we can do is, right now, look what's going on. Right now, the Amazon's on fire. It's the largest carbon sink in the world. It absorbs more carbon from the air than we took every single solitary automobile in America off the road. Now, why can't we, through science and technology, move in a direction where we turn agriculture into the first industry in the world that can be carbon neutral, carbon free? We can provide cover crops. We can make sure farmers get paid for planting cover crops. We can develop crops that have much deeper roots that in fact can absorb the carbon and take it deeper. There's so many things that are in our wheelhouse, and it creates an enormous, maybe I'm too much of an optimist. I've always been an optimist my whole life. I think this presents an enormous opportunity, not only to get it right, but also to create millions of new, good paying jobs. For example, why don't we have, I propose within the next 10 years and sooner, 500,000 charging stations on new green highways and pathways. We can own the electric vehicle market, own it. We can generate, I come from an automobile state. It used to be, it's wiped out now, but I'm the guy that got blamed for us saving General Motors. Remember that whole thing, Biden is, well, guess what? It saved tens of thousands of jobs until the management made a lot of very bad decisions again, in my view. And what's happening now? If we were able to reclaim and become the leader of the market for electric vehicles, we create literally tens of thousands of good paying jobs. We become a net exporter of technology and capability. I take a look at the things that are within our wheelhouse. We can have, we have DARPA at the Defense Department. Well, we can have an ARPA climate provision. DARPA, by the way, is the outfit that went up and they do independent research. It's applied science, and guess what? They're the guys and folks and women came up with stealth technology about the internet, a whole range of things that came out of the brilliant scientists we have. Why aren't we investing the same kind of intellectual resource like you possess and you come from? I'm not being solicitous. Why aren't we investing in that? What are we doing? It not only is needed to save the planet, but it's needed in order for us to be able to generate economic growth. I look at every single fundamental change we've had in technology. What has it done? From back to the Industrial Revolution when the Luddites were roaming the Midlands of England, smashing the machinery because we're changing the culture. We always were able to bend it into making sure it affected everybody positively. This is one of those chances, in my view.
Yeah, I agree.
And by the way, you guys were the ones that got me going back in 1973. I ran the first time, and the reason I ended up getting so deeply involved, I had no plan running for the Senate. I come from very modest means. I'm the first senator I ever knew. It wasn't like Joe Biden was going to be, no, for real. But here's what it was. I'm the guy that introduced block legislation through zoning because I was a county councilman. Our state is made up of 3 counties. The largest one has over 60% of the population. And it's called Newcastle County. They were building a new oil refinery along the Delaware River. I blocked it by zoning. Everybody went nuts, but guess what? It ended up resulting in the Coastal Zone Act. The only outfit in the whole damn country that at the time said you cannot build within 2 miles of the wetlands, period. Preserving forever. It's the same thing like I grew up in a little town called Claymont, Delaware. You've heard, if you're in this business, Marcus Hook and Chester. more refineries than any place at the time, including Houston, in that hook in the river going up to Philadelphia, taking care of 10 million people in the Delaware Valley, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and some parts of New York. And guess what? I'd get up to be taken to school in the morning by my uncle, which is only 5 blocks away up a major highway, and he'd turn on, when the first frost, turn on the windshield wiper, there'd be literally an oil slick in the window. Not a joke. My state was listed as one of had the highest cancer rate in the country. It's all because of those prevailing winds. They're all, the reason Pennsylvania didn't know much about it, the winds weren't blowing west and they weren't blowing north, they were blowing southeast. You know, the same way with, you know, pollution, you know, ocean dumping, the Arctic Preserve. I mean, there's so many things we had to fight so hard to get from the time I was a kid in politics. And today, this guy now, guess what? No more methane restrictions. What's going on? So holler, keep hollering, man. And folks like you know it. You've forgotten more about the subject than most of us who tried to learn a lot know.
Thank you.
Thank
Paul.
you.
Thank
No,
you.
I really mean it.
We have a social media question coming in, Mr. Vice President, from Taylor Bebo. He asks, do you agree with the D.C. versus Heller decision in regards to protecting the individual right to bear arms that are in common use and which are utilized for lawful purposes?
The answer is, I think you can. If I were in the court, I wouldn't have made the same ruling. Okay, that's number one. But let me explain where I am on the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, for example, the First Amendment, freedom of speech. If any one of you stood up and yelled fire, you could be arrested. You have a freedom of speech to say fire, but not in a crowded forum where people would try to get out and maybe someone get hurt tripping over one another. Every constitutional amendment has a limitation. And I taught for years constitutional law and separation of powers. I taught the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment is not absolute. And we can argue, and the fundamental argument is well-regulated militia and all those things. I won't get into that. I think the fundamental argument is the reason it was given as a right is because we needed to be able to muster people to deal with an enemy called Great Britain we were fighting in a war. But hey, that's a different matter. But here's the deal. We've never argued that you can own any weapon you want. It's never been the case that anyone can own any weapon they want. If you are mentally deranged, if you are psychopathic, if you are someone who is 12 years old, if you are someone who has a criminal record, if you are a wife beater, it's always been we can deny you the right to own a weapon, period. Any kind of weapon, a honey weapon, any kind of weapon, because you are not a stable citizen in the minds of the American people. Secondly, we've always been able to say what kind of weapon you can have. Now, I know some of you in New Hampshire, like Delaware, the tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots. I get that. But guess what? If that's about being able to protect yourself against the government, you need an F-15. A jet, you know. You need a bazooka. No, I'm not. I'm being, try to be rational about this. You need a weapon that's compatible with the government is going to abuse you if that's what you think the purpose is. Does anybody think anybody has a right to own a bazooka, a flamethrower, a machine gun? I'm not joking. So why in God's name do you say there's an absolute right to own a weapon that is semi-automatic, that is a military-style weapon designed for one reason, to shoot and kill people in war, that can hold up to 50, 70, 100 rounds of ammunition? As I said back home when I was getting beat up for supporting this, I said when I'd go through the streams where everybody fishes down my way, the sportsmen's clubs I'd go to, and I'd say, look, if you need 100 rounds, you shouldn't be hunting. You're really dangerous to yourself. No, I'm serious. Not a joke. Look, this is about talking common sense. And so I think that's why I led the fight to pass the Brady Bill. The Brady Bill were the background checks. He was the former secretary, the former press person for my colleague Bill Roth, and then went on to Ronald Reagan when, remember, he got shot. Well, you know, it's rational to say certain people shouldn't be able to own a weapon, period. Secondly, it's rational to say there's certain kinds of weapons you can't own. They have no social redeeming value, they have nothing to do with sportsmanship or your right to own a gun. And by the way, I have, with my my son who died, Anyway, my son Bo, he was a decorated veteran, the Conspicuous Service Medal, the Bronze Star, etc. A year in Iraq and spent time in. Anyway, he had 3 shotguns, and I have 2. I have a 20 gauge and a 12 gauge. I'm not a hunter. I'm a skeet shooter. My dad used to be a hunter, but I'm a skeet shooter, and I haven't done that in all fairness for 9-10 years. Not because of anything other than I just have lost interest. But imagine, I have 5 grandchildren. Well, guess what? Those guns are locked up. Locked. Why is it that if you left the key in the car outside here today, and a kid goes in and starts that car, 14 years old, gets in an accident, accidentally kills somebody, you are civilly liable for your negligence? Why in God's name should you not be required to have trigger locks on your weapon? Why? Sandy Hook wouldn't have happened had that mother had those weapons, which she apparently was entitled to own. She passed the test, and the kid comes along, and he picks them up. Why shouldn't he be required to have a trigger lock? So this is an irrational argument. And the biggest problem is not the NRA. The majority of NRA members agree with us now, with me now. Well, guess what? It's the gun manufacturers. They want to sell more weapons. You know, we have a technology. Last thing I'll say. We have a technology now. You can make sure you cannot, James Bond like, you can't pull a trigger of a gun you have unless your biomarker is on it. That's developed. It exists. Well, guess what? I met with the folks out in Silicon Valley who developed these, and they started to sell them in several gun stores, chains. Manufacturers came along there and they said, if you don't take them off the rack, we're going to boycott you. So they took it off the rack. How do I violate your Second Amendment right, whatever weapon it is you're entitled to have, if you're the only one that can pull the trigger? How does that violate your right at all? So this isn't about that. It's about selling more guns. It's about profit. And I think it's dead wrong. We have an epidemic.
Next question, Mr. Vice President, comes from Elizabeth Radisich.
Thank you for being here tonight, Vice President Biden. It's an honor to be here, honor to meet you. So regarding your recent misstatements about the Iraq War, you've asked voters to listen to your judgment rather than the details of your story. And as a mom and as an educator, I feel like details matter. So can you please explain why you didn't remember the details of these events accurately, and will you going forward be more accurate with your details?
I think you're mixing 2 things up.
Okay.
Number 1, what you're talking about in the Iraq War, I voted to give President Bush the authority to go to the UN and ask for the Security Council to vote to send in inspectors into Iraq to see whether Saddam Hussein was keeping his commitment on chemical weapons and keeping his commitment on whether or not he was developing nuclear weapons. The argument was he was doing both because he had thrown out inspectors. And the condition on that was Dick Lugar and I started off and we had a provision. We said it was called the authorization for the use of force. And we said that if in fact you go in and get either A, the Security Council does not vote to give inspectors a right to get back in, you still have to go back to them and ask them whether or not you can use force to get the Security Council behind the use of force, just like President Bush's dad had done when he went in. And I opposed that. I voted against that. Now, what happened was, what people are saying is when I said from the time I said I made a mistake trusting that he would not use the force. That was my mistake. And I said from the time of awe and shock and awe, I was against the war. What was the case was I argued that the way we went to war was wrong, number 1. And number 2, the way we were conducting the war was wrong. The extent to which I misspoke was my public statements were that we were doing this all the wrong way. We should not have done it the way we did it, and we should be supporting the troops if they're in there, but We should be getting an international coalition to support this, etc. And so the misrepresentation was how quickly I said I was immediately against the war. I was against the war internally and trying to put together coalitions to try to change the way in which the war was conducted. Ambassador Bremer will point out to you, I was his worst nightmare when I showed up in Iraq because I thought the idea of Iraq being a united democratic nation, Shia, Kurd, and Sunni being one all together as a democratic institution, I said it will not work. The only way this can possibly work is if you have a regional judgment, a federal system. That's why Les Gelb, who just passed away, and I wrote a piece saying this is a mistake the way we're trying to unify Iraq under one single leader. It's never been unified. It was never there. It was a mistake to try to do it. But when the troops were there, I insisted that they be protected and they have all that they needed while they were there. My son was there for a year in Iraq, not at the time after this. What happened was, immediately after us getting elected, what did occur was the President of the United States, and he was wise enough to vote not trust Bush and vote no, period, okay? The deal was if he votes no and lets the inspectors in and there's nothing going on, then there's no use of force. That was the commitment made. But remember we went in and it turns out there weren't any nuclear weapons. Remember that whole thing? And you go back and look what I said. I said, I don't see any evidence that there's nuclear stuff. Anyway, turned out we were right. They're misrepresented, or at least unintentionally misrepresented. So what happened when we got into office, in the first major meeting we had with the entire national security team, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, National Security Advisor, et cetera, the DNI, Director of Central Intelligence, et cetera, National Intelligence. And they came and said, Mr. President, we've laid out for you, we'd have a morning meeting every morning, every single morning on national security in the Oval. And they said, we have a plan how to make your position about getting out of Iraq work and consistent with you. And he leaned over, and the joke was, you know how he always puts his arm out, President Obama? Well, I sat to his right, and he leaned out and he said, no, Joe will do Iraq. He'll get us out. And I coordinated. I said, that's not a way to win friends and influence people, tell them Joe's going to do this. But everybody knew I wasn't trying to take operational control, but because I knew all those players better than he did because I'd been around longer, and we coordinated how to draw down. I was able to draw down, at the request of the president, over 140,000, 155,000 combat troops. Then I got criticized for that, as you recall, for bringing down the troops, but it was the right thing to do. So the misrepresentation was my saying that, first, the mistake was voting in the first place to trust the judgment. Mm-hmm. The second mistake was that my saying, and I was immediately opposed. Internally, I was opposed, and I did say things like, this is not the way to do it, the way we went to this is the wrong way, we didn't have a coalition behind us, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the context in which that was said.
Thank you.
And details do matter.
Thank you.
But they don't matter if you forget whether you're in Vermont or New Hampshire.
Exactly.
All right. Next question comes from Laura Landerman Garber.
Hi, Laura. How are you?
I'm fine. It's an honor to see you again. And I got to tell you, I'm a little starstruck. But I think I can.
I am too in front of him.
Like you, many of us here in the studio are parents and grandparents, and we would do anything, right? For our children, we would move mountains. They're our treasures. So many in our country, so many children and teens in our country are not getting the health care they need, which I know that you've addressed for years to try and help fix that. I'm a psychologist as well as a parent. And a grandparent, thank you. And I am very concerned, to say the least, about the accessibility of mental health care for our children. And I know that that is something near and dear to your heart. What would you do? What kind of priority would you make to have accessibility for mental health care, not just for our children, but for everyone in America?
A number of things. I'll tell you what, I won't go back to the record and what I did do or tried to do and what we did or tried to do, but tell you what I think should happen. The fact of the matter is that, as you know as a psychologist, we have learned so much more about how the brain functions. We learned, for example, that What's happened in the beginning, everyone had thought that maybe the drug abuse 10, 15 years ago caused mental illness. Mental illness tends to cause drug abuse. It's the opposite way we do this. And so here's the kinds of things we have to do. I've pushed very hard with a lot of people, not alone, to increase the number of mental health centers around the country that are available to every part of the country, particularly the rural parts of America, which lack it badly. Very badly. Number one. Number two, in the Obamacare, in the Affordable Care Act, we equated mental health and, quote, physical health. They're all physical health. There should be no distinction. And one of the things we've gone out of our way to do is to try to make sure that we do not stigmatize people who in fact seek help. One of the things that people are most afraid of is they go and get mental health, or they go see a psychiatrist or psychologist, or get committed to because they need some extended help, that they're going to ruin their lives. It'll be over. We've got to change that stigma. There is not a single getting mentally help. Getting a mental illness is nothing fundamentally different than getting a physical illness. It's like breaking a bone. We should not stigmatize it. We should not be engaged in it. That's one of the things I so resent about this president, the way he talks about people and the way he talks about mental health. Thirdly, in the Affordable Care Act, we equated mental health and physical health. So they both be covered. They both would be covered equally. You couldn't say, well, I'm going to use the Affordable Care Act because I want to get a psychiatric examination for my child or for me or my husband. It should be covered. It was designed to be covered. I carry with me, I hope I have it because I'm emptying my pockets here. I carry with me every day a card, my schedule. And the schedule says what I have to do, and it has a black box on the bottom here. The black box every single day for the last roughly 14 years lists the daily troop update, the exact number of troops who've died in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's today 6,895, not over 6,000. Every one of these people, every one of these fallen angels left an entire community behind and deserves to be recognized for their sacrifice. It lists troops wounded in Afghanistan and Iraq, 52,877. But you know what's not on here? You know, Doc. Roughly 300,000 warriors, men and women, coming home with traumatic brain injury and or coming home needing mental health actions and facilities. We're short, what, how many, 49,000 psychiatric nurses? Yeah. And I got misquoted the other day by saying more people are dying from suicide coming home from these wars than are being killed on a daily basis now. They said Biden said more people have died of suicide than have died in war. That's not what I said. They're roughly running about 20 people. Anyway, I don't want to quote a number because someone's going to say I got it wrong.
Well, it is 20 plus. Some research is saying it's 20 plus a day, active duty and veterans. Suiciding.
And so it's a gigantic issue. And by the way, even if someone is cold-hearted and doesn't care and doesn't think we can learn much, that's why we did the whole brain initiative at the NIH. That's why I'm proposing that we set up an ARPA-H where we in fact decide, get on the lead. I headed up the cancer effort for the president, the moonshot. And then after I went to the administration and said, this is what we made significant changes. We got docs starting to work a little more together. They didn't play very well in the sandbox originally. But now there's cooperation going on. We're making significant breakthroughs. We used to think, for example, there was one, when Nixon declared war on cancer, he meant it. But he had no army. He had no capacity to share data. Hospitals didn't have a way to share the data. But all these years later, when my son was diagnosed with a terminal cancer, I had the opportunity to go around the world and throughout the country, meeting with the leading experts in the world. 5 years before he was diagnosed, everybody thought that the idea of dealing with your immune system to be able to cure cancer was some kind of voodoo science. Now immunotherapy is a gigantic potential breakthrough that's going on now. Well, people are starting to cooperate and share data. You got 5 drug companies up here all trying to get the same exact particular we can now sequence a cancer gene, and we can do it for $1,000, and you find out exactly the nature of the cancer you have. Not just where it is, but what it is. But guess what? If we put all those research that you're doing, each of you dealing with one of the 104 specific cancers requiring different therapies, on the table and said any expert committee can use any of them, because we're realizing now that what happens is it may be like AIDS. It may require multiple drugs. And so what did I come up with? I didn't come up with. I asked for the experts to come up with. They came up and said, okay, the drug you're working on, if it worked, it'd be worth about 28% of the cure. Yours would be 20, yours would be 31, yours would be whatever. So you're all signing on now and saying, oh, and you're exempt of liability. You lay them on the table, and all these experts can come in and use them now, because that exponentially increases the possibility of a breakthrough. So there's so much happening, so much happening. And brain, we know less, the phrase often used, we know less about the brain than we do know about the bottom of the ocean. Now, whether that's literally true, it's a metaphor that's always used. So we have to, that's why we spend so much time and money at NIH trying to invest in research of the brain. It holds the key to so many things.
It does. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Laura.
Laura.
Very much.
Another great mental health question from Dr. Landerman Garber on that subject. One of the sources of mental health problems can be unaddressed grief. You've had to go through tremendously public grieving processes in your life. So what's your message to Americans who are grieving privately to avoid becoming consumed by that grief?
Well, first of all, reach out. Try to get some help. Look, right after I got elected, I got a phone call when I was hiring staff. I wouldn't even know when to be sworn in. And by that time, I turned 30. And December 18th, I was in Washington, and Teddy Kennedy let me use his office to interview staff. And I got a phone call, and a poor first responder, she was so nervous, they had her call me and said, you got to come home, there's been an accident. And a tractor trailer had broadsided my wife and 3 children Christmas shopping and killed my wife and killed my daughter. And my 2 boys were really very badly injured. It took the jaws of life a long time to get them out to save their lives. And I was lucky. I had people around me who cared a great deal about me, embraced me. People who I never knew called me and said, I know. You know, the worst thing when you have something bad happen, and people say, I know what you feel like. Well, if they've never experienced it, you know they have no idea what it feels like. You know they mean well. You almost feel like saying, stop. But people would call and say, I know what it is. This happened to me. And let me tell you what helped me. And one of the things for me that I found was having people I could talk to openly and share my grief with. And for me, it was a little different because I kind of had to do it in public, because I was this, it was like the, this young guy with a beautiful family gets elected, and he's the youngest senator, and then he's, this tragedy, and so it was, well, I think of all the people who didn't have any of the kind of help I had, didn't have any kind of support like I had, that in fact get up every single day, put one foot in front of the other, and go and do it. But what I urge them to do, I urge them to try to at least get to somebody who they know has been through it. Talk to how they dealt with it. It helped me. When you've been the recipient of so much empathy, it's not hard to return it. It makes you relive what happened, but it's not hard to return it. And when my son, Bo, died, he was my soul. And but the other piece of it was with Bo, because he had gone through it as a kid with me and he knew he was dying, is that he said to me, that's why I wrote the book about my son. He said, promise me, Dad. Not a joke, promise me, Dad. He said, I'm going to be okay no matter what happens. And he knew he had only months. But he said, Dad, promise me you're going to be okay. I knew what he meant. He didn't want me to walk away from the things I've devoted my whole life to. It wasn't run for president, Dad. It was, Dad, don't stop doing what you've fought for your whole life. Don't stop being engaged in trying to make things better, Dad. He knew I'd take care of his family and his wife and my grandchildren, but he wanted to know. And for me, what I've found is purpose matters. Have a purpose. Know what you want to do as a consequence of. How many of you have lost someone to cancer, or someone you love, or have cancer yourself? Well, though the TV's not on, but more than half of you. You all understand this. But in some cases, it's really, really important to have professional help. One of the reasons I love Teddy Kennedy, I loved him so much. When my wife and daughter were killed, my kids were hospitalized. That time I came back into the doctors let me stay in the room with them while they were recovering. And I came back after going out to do something, and there was one of the leading psychologists from Boston Children's, is it? I think it's Boston Children's, sitting there. I said, he introduced himself. I said, doctor, and I said, Teddy asked me to come down. I'm happy to talk to your boys. People need help. And particularly if you feel completely isolated. You don't have the kind of incredible, loving, surrounding capacity I had. My best friend in my world is my sister. By the time I got home, after being in the hospital with the boys, she and her husband had given up their apartment and moved into my house and helped me raise my kids without asking a word, without anybody being asked. 5 years later, no man deserves one great love, let alone two. I got remarried. We went on a 3-day honeymoon in New York, which we got married by a Jesuit priest. We didn't know how to do it in Delaware. So many people have been so nice to us, we'd invite. Came home, she and her husband had moved out without a word. We have an expression in my family. If you have to ask, it's too late. So I was incredibly fortunate. And all I can think about is all those people out there today. Think how many people got up today facing horrible circumstances, raised their kids, moved on, did their jobs, but they need help. And by the way, I tell you what works. If you know somebody, just going over and hanging around. Just being there. Don't pretend you know you're an expert. Just being there. Showing up on the day that she or he needs to go to work and they don't have anybody to babysit. Take a day off and help them. Shovel their walk. Simple acts of kindness have profound impacts on how people respond. And I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist.
Mr. Vice President, we thank you for your time on Conversation with a Candidate. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to the audience, and thank you to you watching at home. Have a great evening.
Thank you.